Civilian bullets. In the hunting, personal defense, and law enforcement arenas, the goal is to kill your target, be it human or animal, as quickly as possible. In the hunting world, there are no constraints on the shooters to wound their prey in a more humane manner. In fact, hunters in America who stalk deer and other large game are prohibited by law from using FMJ bullets because they're not sufficiently lethal. Hunting laws demand hunters use soft point rounds with mushroom on impact. The resulting mushroom creates a larger permanent wound cavity and ensures the bullet will stay in the animal, not pass cleanly through it like an FMJ round. Soft point rifle ammunition not only mushrooms but is designed to still penetrate into the target. This combination results in a highly deformed bullet where the first two-thirds of the bullet are deformed beyond all recognition. However, the remaining one-third of the bullet retains its integrity, allowing forensic investigators to analyze and match the bullet based on the rifling marks left on the base of the bullet. With soft points, there is less chance of a through-and-through wound. Law enforcement officers also prefer soft point ammunition, but because of legal liability issues. A police department does not want its officers firing hypervelocity FMJ rounds that will streak through a criminal and then hit an innocent bystander like a woman or child. From a liability standpoint, the police want their bullets to hit a criminal and stay inside them. People using weapons for personal defense often shoot hollow point rounds to inflict as much damage on an attacker as possible. Hollow point rounds are designed to mushroom immediately upon impact, sacrificing penetration for a larger wound cavity. These gun owners, who need to protect their families from criminals armed with anything from knives to handguns, want to hit their assailant and put them down for good. They do not want the assailant to get off a dying shot or get to their loved ones in a final adrenaline-fueled frenzy. Hollow point rounds, when hitting flesh and bone, mushroom and often fragment. Since these types of rounds have relatively poor penetration ability, these rounds tend to stay in the body, so investigators will have something to study. On the other hand, because these bullets suffer from such deformity, it may be difficult, if not impossible, to match the bullet with the weapon that fired it. While these are the most common rounds used, there are some less popular ones that make forensic analysis of the round difficult, if not impossible. For example, a shooter may fire a sabot round out of their weapon, a bullet encased in a plastic shoe. Sabot is a French for the word shoe. As the bullet is fired, the plastic shoe is engaged by the rifling and is launched out of the weapon. During flight, the plastic shoe falls away while the bullet continues downrange and into the target. Because the plastic shoe engages the rifling, not the bullet, there is much less friction and the bullet travels at greater velocities, as fast as 4,000 feet per second. As a result, there are rifling marks on the plastic shoe but none on the bullet. This situation would definitely make a forensic investigator scratch their head when they recovered a bullet, smooth as a baby's bottom, with no rifle scoring whatsoever on it. The investigator would have problems since they would be unable to match the bullet to the rifle. They would have to first find the expended sabot, then match that to the rifle, and then match the bullet to the plastic shoe. This rifle-sabot bullet connection would be no easy task since the plastic shoe does not hold marks on it like metal does. More importantly, a sabot round would enable a shooter to fire a bullet with rifle scoring on it from a different rifle. This way, a shooter could introduce misleading evidence into a shooting scene in order to frame someone else and throw detectives off the shooter's trail. Another type of ammunition commonly used on ranges because it is environmentally friendly is frangible ammunition. Frangible ammunition, or exploding bullets, consist of loosely bonded material that fragments upon impact with the target. They are used on indoor shooting ranges because they have poor penetrating power and will not ricochet upon impact, so they are safer to use in close proximity to people. From a forensic view, frangible bullets fragment so much upon impact that there are no rifling impressions left to be analyzed. A final round we will mention is the Glasser safety slug. The round consists of a thin copper shell filled with birdshot and covered with a plastic nose. The round is billed as a favorite of air marshals since it is designed specifically for low penetration. The air marshals do not want to shoot a terrorist and then have the bullet pierce the skin of the airplane while in flight. A Upon impact, the thin copper shell peels back, launching the birdshot into the target. The glasser causes enormous, relatively shallow, soft tissue injuries. As a forensic investigator, the glasser does not maintain its integrity well, as designed, and the thin copper shell is prone to fragmentation, as designed, so there is little metal remaining to analyze for rifling. A separate problem for battlefield detectives are polygonal barrels, which do not use traditional rifling with lands and grooves and leave relatively faint marks on the bullet. Since there are no defined grooves forced into the bullet, it is difficult for someone to match a bullet fired from a weapon with a polygonal barrel. Glock, Steyr, and Heckler & Koch make weapons with polygonal barrels because it increases both barrel life and bullet velocity. The challenges for the forensic examiner multiply if a frangible or fragmenting bullet is fired from a polygonal barrel because even if a readable fragment was recovered, the rifling will be too faint to match. Polygonal barrels are a problem, and so are smoothbore barrels like those of a shotgun. Smoothbore barrels have no rifling and thus leave no marks on an exiting bullet. Michael A. Stone, a professional killer who worked for the Protestant Loyalist paramilitary groups in Northern Ireland, often preferred to commit his sectarian murders with a shotgun because he knew the authorities would be unable to trace the shootings to his weapon. Stone was eventually caught after a particular audacious assault on an IRA funeral, but he was never connected to his shotgun killings through forensic evidence. All the time, a forensic examiner spends sweating over a microscope, carefully matching one bullet to another, is for naught if the shooter changes or discards their barrel after firing the round. For example, the barrels in automatic pistols from Glock and Sig Sauer are designed to be changed out if only in seconds so they can be easily replaced. This means after firing a bullet, the barrel can be taken out and destroyed, thus removing the connection between the weapon and the bullet. Someone may be able to connect the bullet to the barrel, but not the barrel to the weapon, or, after a period of use, a barrel can be drilled out so there are no more lands left so a bullet cannot be matched to it. IRA shooters were acutely aware of this forensic problem because British authorities took exhaustive measures to recover, analyze, and catalog each and every bullet left behind by an IRA shooting. Consequently, when British forces recovered a suspected IRA weapon, they compared test bullets from captured weapons with their collection of recovered bullets. This thorough forensic work connected many a suspected IRA member with a particular weapon to a specific shooting, resulted in prison sentences for those implicated in these crimes. In one particular breach of forensic security, an IRA member was captured with a rifle used in over a dozen shootings. Even if this person was not responsible for all of the shootings, he certainly took the fall for them. The prisoner now became especially vulnerable to pressure to reveal the real shooters' identities if he ever wanted to see life outside of prison again. Shell casings. Shell casings are as incriminating as the bullets themselves, although the link to the shooter is harder to establish. Cartridges fired in a weapon become unique for several reasons. First, a weapon leaves scrapes along the outer walls of the casing as it is forced into the chamber. Remember, most shell casings are made out of soft brass. Even if the bullet is not fired, the mere act of chambering around leaves microscopic, identifiable marks on the casing. Then, when the firing pin hits the primer face, it leaves a unique, microscopically identifiable indentation that can be detected by a microscope and then matched to a specific weapon. Next, as the round is fired, the shell is forced back against the breech face due to the recoil. This impact on the breech face leaves unique, microscopically identifiable marks on the bottom of the cartridge. Then, once again, as the shell is ejected, either automatically or by manipulation of the bolt extractors leave more marks on the shell casing, connecting the cartridge to that exact weapon. The only weapons free from extractor marks are those that do not have an extractor, like a revolver or a weapon with a break-open system. While the cartridges from these weapons are free of extractor marks, they still have the other unique, identifiable marks. With shell casings, the incriminating link to the shooter takes more effort because after investigators connect a spent bullet with a specific weapon, they have to compare the casings to that same weapon in order to make a definite bullet-weapon casing link. In this case, the weapon is the common element connecting the bullet and casing. If the casing from a weapon is found on a suspected guerrilla's person or property, that link from the shooting to the person is complete. However, investigators still cannot prove a specific bullet was fired from a specific shell casing. Shell casings are informative in other ways. Finding an expended casing reveals the caliber of the weapon and if it is a pistol or a rifle. This information can lead to the country of origin and the manufacturer of the weapon and the origin of the ammunition. Hence, finding an expended .308 caliber casing made by the Federal Cartridge Company suggests the weapon that fired it was an American rifle and the person firing it may be American as well. Where a casing is found is equally illuminating for the investigator. The physical location of a casing shows where the firer was when they made their shot, thus revealing the shooter's tactics and their technical ability. For example, a casing found in a building 800 meters from the target indicates a shooter with unusual technical shooting ability. A casing found in a car indicates the shooter prefers to use a vehicle for a shooting platform as opposed to a building. In sum, shell casings are another incriminating link in the chain of evidence that can lead to the capture and conviction of the sniper. Most common criminals know this, as do guerrillas who cannot afford to be captured with casings in their possession or on their property. Experienced shooters never leave casings behind after a shooting and dispose of them immediately after an operation. To tie the subject in with an historical example, a lack of shell casing discipline revealed many things about the JFK assassination, to include the location of certain sniper teams and evidence Lee Harvey Oswald did not fire from the school book depository. Magazines. Magazines left behind at the scene of a shooting are as revealing as leaving shell casings behind. A quick look at a magazine indicates the exact kind of weapon that was fired from a particular location, revealing if the weapon fired was an AK-47 or an M16. Microscopic inspection of the magazine can match the markings on the magazine with the magazine well and release mechanism of the particular weapon used. However, this matching works best if the magazine was only inserted into a single weapon. If the magazine was loaded into multiple weapons, now leaving multiple marks, positive identification to a single weapon becomes difficult. Fingerprints. While a weapon's unique extraction system, firing pin, and rifling is the weapon's fingerprint, actual fingerprints from the firer are also incriminating. Remember, investigators eventually discovered Lee Harvey Oswald's palm print on the barrel of the supposed murder weapon underneath the actual stock of the weapon. The shooter's fingerprints can be left not only on the weapon itself, but on the above-mentioned magazines and shell casings. This incriminating identification makes the use of gloves a necessity for the shooter to break the link of their unseen fingerprints left on a physical item used in the shooting. This basic understanding of incriminating evidence through fingerprints is understood by most professional criminals in the world and is solved by simply wearing gloves. IRA shooters habitually wore gloves, some even using surgical gloves, to prevent their fingerprints showing up on their weapons. As mentioned in the IRA's counter-forensic manual, microscopic fibers from the gloves used in a shooting may be left on the weapon, requiring the gloves to be destroyed after the operation. Fingerprints can be found elsewhere too. Did the person loading the bullets into the magazine wear gloves? Did they inadvertently leave fingerprints on the unexpected cartridges in the magazine or on the magazine itself? The shooter themselves may be clean of fingerprints, but someone else in the shooting process may have exposed themselves. DNA. DNA collected from any number of means is a particularly damning link in the chain of evidence because it positively identifies a particular human being. Items like hair follicles, skin particles, saliva, earwax, and blood can irrefutably connect an individual to a shooting. These repositories of DNA can be transferred to a crime scene any number of ways. For example, a person's hair and skin is left on almost everything they physically touch or brush up against in an unprotected manner. Also, a person waiting in a sniper position for extended periods may urinate on the ground, leaving an incriminating link through their bodily waste. Or a person may spit chewing tobacco on the ground at a sniper hide, leaving a DNA link to them. One Iraqi insurgent sniper firing from a van, we read about this in the Juba chapter, shot an American soldier at a vehicle checkpoint and was hit with accurate return fire, wounding the sniper in the foot. Even though the wounded sniper fled the scene and hid in a nearby building, it was easy for the American soldiers to follow the blood stains left from his foot and then capture the sniper. In this case, blood stains were not used in forensic analysis, but as simple spoor to track down the wounded sniper. Physical clues. Physical damage to a shooter's body offers more clues for the investigator. For example, a high-powered rifle may leave a bruise or a mark on the firer's shoulder. Russian forces in Chechnya understood this and routinely checked the shoulders of suspected insurgents to see if they fired a weapon recently. A bruise on the shoulder is only a clue, but it will get the suspected Chechen guerrilla an all-expense-paid trip to a filtration camp just to be sure. Also, a novice shooter, and even some veteran shooters, may fire a rifle with their head too close to their scope. When the rifle fires and jerks back from the recoil, the scope can hit the shooter above the eye, leaving a nasty semicircular cut on the eyebrow area. Anyone who has been around sniper rifles for a while will instantly recognize this unique wound for what it is. Another relatively common type of injury is having a shooter's hand get bit when working the action of their weapon. This is a more common occurrence when handling pistols. When the pistol's action slides forward, the slide may catch a small piece of skin at the webbing of the hand or even on one of the fingers, making a small cut. People that handle and shoot weapons frequently may have these small cuts on their hands. Again, this does not prove one's guilt, but it is an indicator which may place a shooter under unwanted scrutiny. These cuts become a real problem if skin and blood samples are left on the action of the weapon, providing an incriminating DNA link from the weapon to the shooter. Or if a shooter does not get a cut above their eye from their scope, their blood will be left on the scope itself, providing an irrefutable DNA link from the shooter to their weapon. Gunshot residue, GSR. As discussed in depth by the IRA's counter-forensic manual, gunshot residue, GSR, produces a serious forensic problem. Imagine a person firing a rifle with their head next to the action of the weapon. Their entire head and face will be covered in a cloud of GSR. The GSR will settle on a person's clothes and their hair and their ears, nostrils, eyebrows, under their nails, and all over the weapon itself. Dogs can be trained to sniff out and detect GSR, and a variety of companies manufacture portable GSR wipe kits that change colors when they are rubbed up against GSR. Only an immediate, thorough post-operation cleanup will remove this GSR from the shooter's clothing and body. Burning a shooter's clothing is common after an operation, as is taking a long bath where every inch of a person is cleaned with soap and water. The IRA was very GSR conscious and trained their shooters to clean themselves after an operation. One should also remember using a sound suppressor helps to contain the majority of the GSR propelled out of the barrel of the weapon. A person using a suppressed weapon is likely to have little or any GSR left on their person after a shooting. Authors note, since GSR can be found in common household items like paint, false positive reads are common, and thus these tests often carry little weight in the court of law. For example, GSR tests carry little weight in the Iraqi legal system. Auditory evidence. An often overlooked aspect of sniper forensics is the auditory evidence that can be used to identify a specific weapon. This capability is becoming more common in such places as American cities where civil law enforcement agencies use a series of remote audio systems to detect gunshots in crime-infested areas. Armies are also starting to use acoustical devices on their vehicles to detect gunshots, so enemy snipers can be rapidly found and taken out. These acoustical detection systems are a threat to the sniper because they can determine the location of the sniper by analyzing the sound of the gunshot and coming up with a back azimuth of the incoming bullet. Audio recording devices are also capable of capturing a specific gun's audio signature, whose graphic representation can then be examined by an auditory specialist in order to match a recorded gunshot to a specific weapon. This auditory problem is discussed further in the chapters on sound suppressors and counter-sniper methods. A counter-forensic perspective. A guerrilla sniper will try to defeat or delay an investigation by using good sniper tactics and will in fact choose their firing position based on counter-forensic principles, not traditional ideas of immediate survival. With a counter-forensic mindset, the sniper uses the urban terrain in such a way making it difficult or impossible for crime scene investigators to find out exactly where they fired from. This is why so many Chechen, IRA, PLO, and Iraqi snipers fired from urbanized areas, so security forces were overwhelmed with the number of possible sniper positions and gave up on finding them. If security forces could not find the sniper's nest, then they have nothing to investigate. At worst, experienced snipers use the urban terrain in such a manner investigators are delayed in finding their firing position, so the shooter has time to forensically sterilize their position. From a counter-forensic perspective, the more distant a shooter places between themselves and the target, the harder it is to catch them. For one, it is harder for security forces and bystanders to identify the source of the fire. At extreme distances, it is difficult to see the muzzle flash and hear the gunshot from the weapon. Distance helps in other ways by eliminating the association between the target and the sniper. If the sniper is so far away from their victim that people near the sniper cannot even see the target and do not even know someone was shot, they will not be alert to suspicious activity in their area. In other words, the shooter will remain invisible. From the investigator's side, the increased distance means they have to consider a staggering variety of options. Which one of the hundreds of buildings, thousands of doors and windows, and thousands of cars did the shot come from? And which one of these thousands of hostile people actually knows something about the shooting? Identity security. It is true, effectively concealing the muzzle flash, muzzle blast, the sound of the gunshot, and the angle of the shot will prevent identification of the sniper's position, thus buying the sniper time. These are not the only considerations. The skilled sniper is also concerned with eyewitnesses or security cameras that can identify them during their sniping operation. A sniper cannot remain anonymous if their face is plastered across the evening news and on rewards posters at the local market. Once a sniper's physical identity is revealed, government security forces have the advantage and can use their resources to track down their now exposed target. To limit this possibility of exposure, guerrilla snipers intentionally move into and out of their firing sites in a natural manner that raises no suspicion. This means the sniper tries to look and act like everyone else in the area. Ruses, such as dressing like a police officer, a soldier, or other kind of public employee, provide a good cover for a sniper's movements before and after their operation. Furthermore, experienced guerrillas have a credible cover story already prepared, so if they talk to anyone, the sniper story appears uninteresting and is quickly forgotten. Like the DC snipers telling inquisitive police officers they were just in the area visiting family. The sniper understands they cannot allow themselves to be seen actually pulling the trigger. To do this, the sniper achieves relative isolation. That means the sniper shoots from inside a room or inside a vehicle, so they may still have people near them, but inside that protective space, there is no one who can physically see the sniper pull the trigger. A sniper protects their physical identity and actions in other ways, such as firing from an area where there are no people, like a bombed-out building, or by operating at night where the shooter cannot be seen because of darkness or because people are inside for the night because of a government-enforced curfew. Other measures include wearing a disguise like a wig or using commonly worn items to hide their features like a hat, scarf, and sunglasses. IRA shooters wore balaclavas, ski masks, and full-face motorcycle helmets to cover their faces. Guerrillas across the Middle East cover their faces with headscarves, and Chechen guerrillas often mimicked their Russian foe, wearing a variety of head nets and balaclavas. Guerrillas also intentionally employ their snipers in areas the sniper's not from, so if the sniper's face is seen, eyewitnesses will not know who they are. If the guerrilla sniper conducts their attack from an area that supports them, then concealing their identity may not be an issue. A Chechen rebel shooting a Russian soldier in Grozny, an insurgent shooting an American in Fallujah, an IRA sniper targeting a British soldier in Belfast, or a Hamas gunman targeting an Israeli in the Gaza Strip, may not have to worry about the local population exposing them because the people support their actions. Operational signature. One thing investigators can study about a sniper is the absence of any incriminating physical evidence is their operational pattern. Humans are creatures of habit and often conduct repetitive activities because it is easier to do something they know than to repeatedly operate in the unknown. No matter how good a guerrilla sniper is technically and tactically, they often set a predictable pattern. A sniper who is comfortable working a specific neighborhood is setting a pattern. A sniper who only fires from a van is setting a pattern. Security forces use these established patterns to build a profile so they can set a trap or at least be conscious of the sniper's habits and favorite shooting platforms. A smart sniper develops several different profiles with several different sets of habits so not to create an easily recognizable pattern. For instance, the sniper can develop a methodology used for firing from vehicles, a methodology for firing from occupied buildings, and a methodology for firing at night from wooded areas. The sniper then mixes these methodologies at random so as not to create a pattern. Even in Stalingrad, Vasily Zaitsev and his snipers were conscious about setting a pattern and intentionally changed their tactics to deceive the Germans to survive another day. Forensic investigation as a counterinsurgency tool. In a guerrilla war, a competent team of forensic investigators who can read a crime scene and reverse engineer a shooting is the sniper's greatest foe. An experienced sniper detective is in fact more effective than an entire battalion of heavy artillery or a squadron of helicopter gunships. The battlefield detective is dangerous to the guerrilla because they are discriminating and have the tools and know-how to pluck a single guerrilla fish from the ocean of people without destroying the urban infrastructure or killing innocent people. Of even more importance is in the way an investigative team captures a sniper. Burning up an entire city block with napalm to get a sniper is a quick, satisfying, but self-defeating counterinsurgency perspective. However, if investigators identify and capture a sniper through incriminating evidence, they can successfully prosecute the shooter through the legal system. Prosecuting a sniper through the courts reinforces a sense of due process, justice, and respect for individual rights. In fact, it is important for security forces to make a deliberate show of due process to gain legitimacy with the people. As we know, governments rule a nation because the people give their consent to do so. The more legitimate a government is in the eyes of its people, the less resistance it meets from them. Of course, on occasion, security forces may have to use superior firepower to eliminate a sniper, but this should be a rarity, not the rule. Taking all of this into consideration, a well-trained forensic investigative team is not only effective for counter-sniping, they are a good counterinsurgency tool.